everyone. I'm so excited to be with y'all today. It's so cool seeing everybody coming in from all over. You've joined us for the Cox Campus and Foundations Inc. Summer Series for K through 3rd educators. This is our first session all about learning ecosystems. You can go to the next slide for me, Anna. Thank you. So my name is Sarah Quinn. My pronouns are she, her, and I work at the Rollins Center for Literacy and Language. I'm an instructional designer and content specialist, which basically means I just make the courses for Cox Campus. But above everything, I am a teacher. I taught in New Orleans, in Nashville, a bit in upstate New York, and here in Atlanta. And I'm so excited to get to talk with y'all today and hear your ideas around how we build a happy, healthy classroom for all of our students. Just to kind of warn y'all about what's going to happen, not warn, but let you know what's going on for this hour. We're going to be calling on you to share your ideas in the chat. We're also going to do one breakout session where you all can talk to each other and get to, share what you're thinking and brainstorm together. And you're welcome to keep your camera on or off. For the breakout session, it's helpful if you can change your name and add your name and your pronouns to your picture. And you can do that by clicking the 3 white dots in the corner of your little video. But just letting you guys know kind of what to expect, because I know I always really appreciate that. You can go to the next one, Yana. So if you aren't familiar, I see some people registered through Cox Campus. Cox Campus is Rollins' online platform. It is a free platform for teachers and other stakeholders. And it's like we have professional development courses and tons of reading related stuff. We have really great resources that you might be able to use in your classroom or use for planning. And we also have a community that we ask you to join. We have message boards, other like-minded educators and practitioners who you can always go and message with if you're kind of trying to figure something out. So we really urge you to make your account on Cox Campus, and that is free due to the support of the James M. Cox Foundation. Also so excited to share, we just got our IACET certification, which means that many of you may be able to get professional learning credits for taking our courses, and that's a free option for people. So that's really exciting for me. So check that out in the chat if you're not a member already. And we can go to the next slide. So this is the first of our summer series through August. All of our sessions this summer are based on Cox Campus courses that we have up that you can take. So this one's about classroom ecosystem. On July 22nd, my colleague is going to be talking about read alouds, and that's a really wonderful course. Then we'll do small group instruction on July 29th. And then we have 2 sessions for assessment. And if you're a teacher or another practitioner or administrator, assessment is a doozy. So we're going to spend 2 sessions on that and really get nitty gritty with what you all need and what kind of support we can offer and how we're going to figure out what we're going to do going into this next school year, because we know how critical it is. So we invite you to go to Cox Campus, take the read aloud course, take the small group instruction course, take the assessment, and of course the classroom ecosystem course. And you can take those in between our sessions to really deepen your learning and deepen your engagement with these topics and get ready for the next year. We can go to the next one. So this is a little preview of the classroom ecosystem course. This is how it looks on Cox Campus. And it's one of our shorter courses. I think it'll take, I retook it yesterday. I think it took me less than an hour. So the link is going to be in the chat after the session. If you haven't taken it yet, we invite you to just go check it out and watch it start to finish and check out the resources that we've provided for y'all. Next slide, please. So today's goals for this session, we'll ask you by the end to be able to name the 4 major categories of a healthy classroom ecosystem. And we're also going to ask y'all to reflect on activities and routines that are going to engage children in learning in a healthy ecosystem. So those are our goals. And the next one, please. And let's begin. I'm going to ask y'all to answer in the chat, please. How do you know that you are welcome and you are valued within a space? How do you know as the learner, as a person, as a teacher, as a human? What does that look like to feel welcomed? What are the kind of things people say to you? What does it sound like? Go ahead and drop those in the chat so that we can see as a community what that means to us to be welcomed and to be valued within a space. I'm seeing that it's important to Marla to be asked for thoughts and input and feel listened to. I'm seeing a big smile, like warmth, a warm greeting, people showing interest, people learning your name. I had so much trouble learning a student's name the other day, and it's really important. When your co-teachers listen to you and respect you, we're hearing that listening theme again, and remembering the name. Acknowledging that your thoughts are important. Yeah. Greeting people with a smile, people talking and including you. Oh my gosh, that's so important to feel included in conversation and not just like standing there like, hello. Okay, these are great. Let's move on to the next one, Yana. Thank y'all so much for sharing. So all of these components are harbingers of a learning ecosystem that is healthy. And a learning ecosystem is a system of teachers, learners, peers, and materials that are all working together so learning can thrive, much like the ecosystems that we want to preserve and support in our forests or our oceans. This is a classroom ecosystem that we want to create. Next slide, please. Oh, I love that, Dawn, about following up on conversations. When people remember something and bring it back up, that's how you know they were really listening. So the 4 components that we have on Cox campus of a healthy classroom ecosystem are establishing and fostering culture, like a specific culture for that classroom. We have the classroom structure, which is not only how the classroom is physically set up, but what are the routines, what's the schedule, those sort of things. We have equity of voice, which is incredibly important, equity of voice for all of our students, and I would say their families as well. And then finally, the building blocks of the reading brain is one of our foundational components of a healthy classroom ecosystem where all of our children are learning to read and thrive. And the next slide, we're going to talk more about the building blocks. So this is, I think, one of the things I'm the most excited to talk with y'all about. So I'm imagining, and let me know in the comments if this is true, that many of you are coming here because you have a focus on literacy. It's something you are passionate about, excited about, you know how important it is, and perhaps you were hoping this summer with us to talk about the 5 big, the big 5 recommended by the National Reading Panel. I know you know that we need to talk about phonics, phonological awareness, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And I promise you that in the other sessions, we are going to get very nitty-gritty and talk about these things. But before we can talk about instructional components and how we begin to teach our children to become thriving readers, we have to talk about building the blocks of their deep reading brain and establishing an environment where every child is actually in a position to be able to learn to read in a deep and meaningful way. So this research comes out of Marianne Wolf's work on the deep reading brain, and she has learned that we need to have personal reflection for our students. They have to have space to improve their executive functioning. We need to have critical thinking and deep discussion and conversation about what's going on with them and in our world. We have to build their empathy. And this might be my favorite, imagination. We have to build their capacity for imagination. If we don't build these building blocks for our students, they may be able to, master rote skills, or there may be things the ways that they make progress, but in terms of building that deep reading brain that we want for our students for their lives, for the long term, we have to have a paradigm shift when we're talking about reading education. We've got to start by building that deep reading brain. And it's going to be a change to the status quo. So with those in mind, Yana, if you could show the next one, I want to ask y'all, if we are shifting the paradigm, if reading instruction means that we have to start with personal reflection for our students, with critical thinking, imagination, empathy, executive functioning. In y'all's opinion, how can we create a classroom culture that is actually conducive to building the deep reading brain? What would that culture look like? So I'm just going to give a little minute of think time. And I'm going to give y'all a chance to actually respond with a word cloud. Thank you so much, Tamara, for responding already in the chat and being ready to share. So let's go to the next one, Yana, and give directions. So you can either put the link I think Anna's going to drop it in the chat. You can put that in your browser and respond, or you can just text on your phone, David M 587 to 22333, and you can share what you're thinking. And I'll repeat the prompt one more time. Give y'all a second to open up your browser or to get your text message ready so we can do our word cloud. How can we create classroom culture that is conducive to building the deep reading brain? And feel free to respond with a word. Feel free to respond with a phrase or a sentence. It's totally up to you how you want to respond. Ooh, we've got them coming in. I love word clouds. This is so fun. Okay, connection. We have read every day. We have their thoughts. We have the word authentic, together, choice. Read is getting bigger and bigger. Oh, thank you so much. Trisha, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I forgot to say this, thank you for the reminder. If you can't participate or you just don't feel like figuring out, please feel free to drop your response in the chat and we'll be able to see them there too. So don't worry if you can't access the word cloud, just go ahead and drop your response in the chat. Okay, we've got discussion, read alouds, conversations, mindset. Wow, yeah. We've got joy. Oh, that's one of my favorites. We're going to talk about that too. Let's see. Wow, the word together is getting bigger and bigger too. So I'm seeing making connections personally to what you're reading, making those personal connections. Honoring, mindfulness, collaboration. Beautiful. So let's just maybe take like 30 more seconds in case people are still getting those in. I'm seeing meet basic needs. Yes. Open-ended questions and conversation. I'm seeing someone else share in the chat, show that you're interested by reading together and engaging all views of reading. Okay, so drawing together. Ooh, I'm an artist and I really think it's important for kids to get to draw in response. Yes. Sharing experiences. I see the word loving. I thought about like putting the word love in this presentation because I don't think we talk about that enough. Okay, beautiful. All right, I know people have more to share. Is there anything that I didn't shout out that anybody feels like is really important to mention? Go ahead and drop that in the chat so you can highlight that for us. I'm seeing the word asset-based or the term asset-based. Yes, being asset-based for your students and really working hard to fight deficit mindsets. Lots of materials. Yes, Dawn, having materials that you need to create that rich environment for your students. Absolutely. Okay.
Hi, this is Ms. Gator. Can you see my chats? I'm typing them in, but can you see them?
I haven't. What's your name?
Williams Gator, Gladys Williams Gator.
I'm not seeing your chats, Gladys. I'm not sure why, but you're welcome to come off mute and share out loud if you prefer that.
Well, one of the things is socialization with the child. We may think they're getting socialization at home, but not all of them are.
Right. And making that space. I know when I was teaching kindergarten, I had to like do my play center. I had to do my play centers like in secret because they didn't want me. They were like, you don't have time for that in your day. But we know how important play is and the chance to really socialize with them. Thank you for sharing that, Gladys. And please go ahead and come off mute if you ever want to share at any point and you can't. All right, let's go ahead to the next one, please, Yana. Thank y'all so much for sharing. Okay, so for this one, so knowing that we have all these beautiful and powerful and important aspects of classroom culture, how do we begin to translate that into our classroom rules or our classroom norms? Thinking about the beginning of the school year, I know that's coming up for those of us in Georgia. So I was wondering if y'all know how you can use the annotation feature on Zoom if you're familiar with that. And you can go ahead and stamp. Why don't we use like the heart if you want to go ahead and stamp which of these rules that you see on the screen establishes a learning culture that would build the reading brain. Which of these stand out as something that would help you establish that learning culture to build the reading brain? And if you don't want to use the annotation feature, you don't know how, or you can't, go ahead and drop it in the chat or even come off mute if that's something you need to do. I'm seeing numbers 1 and 4. Go ahead and maybe write them out for me, whoever just did that comment, just so, because I think both of them have 1 and 4. So I'm not sure which ones you mean.
Definitely be in class on time.
Being in class on time is something that helps establish that, so you have time to do that work with students. Yeah. So I'll give y'all a second to annotate or drop them in the chat. I'm seeing some people have figured out I can annotate sometimes and sometimes I can't. So I'm noticing a lot of people are marking listen to others, which is something that a lot of you highlighted when you came in, is something that makes you feel welcome. So I'm thinking about the connection there. Being kind and helpful, do your best. I'm also noticing that there are more annotations on the second class rules, on the one on the right-hand side, than on the first one. And I'm wondering if anybody has any thoughts about that. I noticed a couple of people, like, listening to instructions was something that people thought was really important for establishing a classroom culture to build the deep reading brain. And I wonder if anybody wanted to come off mute or share in the chat. Why do you think as a group we are tending to annotate the second one more than the first one when we're trying to build the reading brain? Carol's thinking that they're more positively stated on the right side as opposed to like negative or saying what not to do. It's saying what you should do. Okay. Anyone else? What do y'all think?
I think it's the look of the poster and your eye is drawn to it, and it helps you realize, like as a teacher, why you make those anchor charts every year with the students, because they're colorful and don't look like something you could have made 10 years ago.
Right. And thinking also, like, I'm wondering, this one looks like maybe it was made with the students, like you said. So maybe even like how you make it could be something that makes it more meaningful for them. And it feels more warm, Anisha's saying. I'm seeing Tiffany said the one on the left seems to be more about compliance and not about compassion. Tiffany, did you want to say anything more about that? You don't have to.
Sure. I just feel like the be in class on time, listen to instructions, keep your hands and feet to yourself, that's all about things that we want them to do to be compliant or to follow rules. Whereas the one on the right is more about what you need them to do to make the classroom work.
Right. So it's more about creating the kind of classroom that you want to see.
Yes, when you talked about like classroom culture and the ecosystem, like the one on the right seems to do more of that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. And this is not to like, there's no right or wrong answer here. Rules are deeply personal, and teachers have to run their classrooms as they see fit and as they need to, but it's just something to think about. I'm seeing also this idea of student involvement and student buy-in. And I just want to mention before we moved on, the idea of like building rules and norms with your students and asking for their ideas and their input on, it's more of like a vision for your classroom rather than like what not to do in your classroom. Does anybody else have anything they wanted to share? I can see a lot of people are sharing in the chat. Is there anything else y'all feel like we need to highlight before we move on? I'm seeing child-based and allowing for ownership. And Justin sharing that everything in the ecosystem is connected to each other. That's beautiful. Oh, Trisha, I love that. The way each child would want to be treated and like how they're going to see that classroom as their home. Okay, let me give you all a second if anyone else wants to come off mute or share, and then we're going to go ahead and move on. Okay, thank y'all so much for sharing this. Again, no right or wrong way, just ideas for how we create this kind of culture. And Yana, you can go to the next slide for me. So the next element from our course that of creating an ecosystem, we've talked about building blocks of the reading brain. We've talked about culture. The next one is classroom structure. This is actually one of the things I spend the most time thinking about because it's how you make all this stuff come true. So this is my colleague Yvette. And if you can go to the next slide, Yana, we're going to watch a short excerpt from this course about classroom structure.
The classroom environment is the backdrop of our learning ecosystem. The elements of the classroom environment play a vital role in setting the stage for effective instruction and learning. Some examples of these elements are the classroom design, your morning routine, and daily schedule considerations. Functional, organized placement of furniture and resources allow for ease of movement and locating resources as they relate to learning. Students and teachers need to know how to readily access materials for learning while removing any barriers such as disorganization or clutter that can disrupt our classroom ecosystem. You can use this planning map to set up the classroom for collaboration and ease of transitions. This is available in our resource library. An example of a classroom routine is the morning routine, and it provides a systematic process for what students will do upon entry into the classroom and where the teacher will be located upon arrival. Morning routines can establish the tone for the day by welcoming students and making it easy for students to be successful. A visual representation of the morning routine is a visible artifact in the classroom, and the teacher is available to welcome students each morning to start the day. A daily schedule is a visual representation of the activities of the day. Organizing classroom activities helps ensure there is ample time for transitions, brain breaks, independent reading, and other activities. Adhering to schedule outlines with time for monitored, structured breaks will allow for balance in learning, and balance is essential to our classroom ecosystem. The daily schedule chart allows students to participate in the time management of the learning day. Next, we will talk about how important the student's voice is in the classroom ecosystem.
So Yvette, that was like a lot of things I know all of us are familiar with and that we think about, but was there anything like morning routine, thinking about brain breaks or schedule, was there anything that stood out to you as an opportunity to create the classroom ecosystem that we want to see? Something that kind of, every teacher, they have to come in the morning, but is there anything that, when you think about a morning routine that exemplifies the kind of classroom we want to create, was there any other sort of like, it seem like a mundane routine, but something where you really feel like there's an opportunity to create culture and to create the deep reading brain classroom? Go ahead and drop those in the chat if there's anything that stood out to you or anything that you're thinking of. For example, the transition down to lunch as another opportunity to really infuse all these elements that we want to see in our classrooms.
One of them stuck out to me, this is Miss Gator, was the daily schedules. When I worked in the autism self-contained class, we would actually post their schedules. Each child had their personal schedule, and they knew when the sound of that bell came, they go and check their schedule. They knew exactly what they were going to do every day. But hypothetically speaking, say if the next day we knew that there was going to be a program or something else going on, well, we would have to not put their normal stuff up, but put that program or something indicating that you was not going to do what you normally do, but you're going to do something different. But it's going to be different because it's up there. So you're well prepared.
I love that example. And that's such a great example of something that general ed teachers can take from the incredible brilliance and wisdom of special education teachers. Because I think they're, for teachers like you who are maybe in a resource setting, that schedule is of utmost importance. But I think there's a lot of kids who may not necessarily be in that setting who still benefit from the feeling of autonomy and of being informed that they get from something as simple as a schedule, to know what's going to happen, to feel informed can really make a big difference for a child in feeling at home in their classroom and feeling like they have some autonomy, as opposed to like, go here, go there. Like, so I really appreciate you bringing that up. That's a perfect example. Let me see some of these comments. Calm music playing. Yes, Pamela. Greeting students at the door changes the mood in the classroom. Welcoming parents. I love that you brought in family, Dawn. That's so important to our ecosystem. Quiet time and transition time, and making sure that there is good routines for transition so it doesn't just feel like this. That is so important to make sure students can feel respected. And I love this, Carol, a balance of structure and routine with students having choice and voice in the process and giving them choice maybe first thing in the morning. I used to do that in my kindergarten class too, so that they feel like there's some ownership over their day, because we know there's going to be things in the day that we just have to do. Okay, wow, these are really brilliant. Thank y'all so much for sharing. Yana, can you move on to the next one? So this is, I think, the perfect thing to kind of transition from that point about schedule or that point about student choice, is equity of voice for our students in the classroom. Meaning that students have the chance to actually voice their opinions, their ideas, what they would like to do. They have the chance to give input. And I always couple that voice with choice. It means that you don't just talk, but it actually has an effect on what you're doing, on the outcome, and on the community as a whole. I love that Trisha sharing, having children share what they're looking forward to that day. That's another example of just like kids getting to talk about what matters to them and making that time in the day. Because I know it doesn't always feel like there's time for that, but we all know how critical that is. So some examples of structures that can create equity of voice from our ecosystems course are accountable talk, morning and closing meeting, which, you know, you can look different ways in different schools, different classrooms, and of course, social and emotional learning, making space for them to talk about and explore emotions and problem solving together. Any other examples of structures in y'all's classrooms or things you're thinking about that could help promote equity of voice and give students that chance to talk in a way that matters? Trisha's got us started actually by accident by saying having children share what they're looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Any other examples?
Like small talk groups early in the morning, because there are times that kids go through something the night before or either before they get on that bus. And, you know, that icebreaker about them having sit and talk it over with their peers and the teachers who they can trust, it gets them through that day. Having a chance to actually talk about what's going on with them before it's kind of get into it and do what you need to do. That's so important. I'm seeing Neva, I'm not sure if I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Morning news from each child. If y'all don't know about morning news is so cool, especially for younger children. That's something I used to do in kindergarten as well. So give that a Google if you're not familiar. And Anisha also said, similarly, talking about what's happening in their life outside of school, what they did over the weekend, just making sure that they know that their experiences are welcome in class. Okay, let's go ahead. Oh, no, we've got a couple more. Special guests. Oh, that's so fun, that tell their stories. Dawn, do you want to explain more about that? You are not required to.
No, that's fine. I just meant to find community role models that maybe would feel comfortable sharing their story appropriately with young kids in their journey, social, emotionally. Because I'm sure there's, you know, because everyone always thinks about career day, right? And that kind of thing. I think there's an adaptation, you know, you can adapt that to social emotional topics and, you know, and family engagement kinds of issues. So anyway, just a thought.
I think that's a really beautiful and a really brilliant idea. Because when you said that about career day, it really clicked for me. I was like, because that is sometimes, you know, that's when you think to say, okay, who can I get to come in here? But for people to come in and share about their emotional experiences, like how powerful would that be for them? Especially if it's someone they know, like I'm thinking maybe someone who's working in the cafeteria or a family member or even the principal. Wow, Dawn, I'm going to sit with that and think about that one.
I'd like to share on that one.
Oh, please go ahead.
I like the fact that when you do open up to children and children open up, you find yourself helping them to share their emotion, deal with their emotion on the onset, and prepare them to engage whatever's in front of them to achieve. Some of them have a tendency to be so closed that it stops them from engaging their work. So if you help them to release whatever it is, normally they're ones that always come up, they're talkative, and they're engaged in others. They got a lot on their mind, so they have to find a release in order to engage what's in front of them. That's my experience of students that need that extra time to engage. The ones that don't, they're always hands-on, they're pencil ready, they're paper ready, they're just so forward versus the ones that just need that crutch or that push or even a pull to get their attention to focus. So I agree with what we say on that note.
What you're saying is making me think, like, these are things that we as teachers know from our experiences, right? Like, I need to speak to him and he needs to feel loved in order to engage in the reading activity. But what you're saying is a real life illustration of Marianne Wolf's research and what we see in the brain science, which is like, you know, literally they cannot learn until until these things are in place.
Right.
So all of it, I mean, and I know like it's not always easy to make this stuff happen because we have so many pressures on us, but to fight for these things and to say, no, we need morning meeting, or else when it's time for phonics, it's going to be a no-go for many of my students because they didn't get what they needed. So I really appreciate you coming and sharing that, because I think that was a really important connection.
And one other thing, because they're so closed, and if they're closed, they won't learn. They'll reject. There'll be a rejection, and of course, some of the ones that have to be moved because they're not willing to whatever it is that's making them heavy and unacknowledgeable, and then they want to make the whole class like that, and you have to remove the child.
Yeah, and I'm seeing Suzanne made the connection Maslow before Bloom. So taking care of those basic needs before we can even begin to do all the things we know we need to do. And Yana, would you show me the next slide just so I can make a connection to that? So this kind of speaks to this idea of equity of voice in classroom structure and how they feed into each other. We've got to build structures that align with our values. We have to build a schedule that aligns with our values, so that we have the infrastructure in place to make this stuff happen. Because I know we wish we could sit and talk with every child, and it's just, it doesn't work like that. I saw someone else's suggestion to use Flipgrid, the morning welcome, like all these routines we can put in place so that, you know, we can deliver this for our students. And Justin's been posting some great links and resources to Responsive Classroom as well. So I think let's go ahead. I think people are ready to go for the next one, Yana, and we're going to get into breakout rooms. For those of you who, I know a lot of people have been on Zoom a lot, but just bear with me for some people who may not be familiar with the breakout rooms, is that we're going to put you into one and a little pop-up will come on screen and you can click join room and it'll whisk you into another little room. You guys will be with three other peers and you'll have a chance to talk. If you need any help, there's a feature where you can click like ask for help, and one of us who's helping with the event will come in and help y'all out if you're having a technical issue. Yana's going to go ahead and post the question that we're going to answer in the chat so that everyone will have it in the chat available. But what I'm going to ask y'all to get in groups and talk about, and of course, if there's other things you want to talk about, that is your business and you have many things to discuss. But a suggestion is, what routines do you already have in place for student voice and choice? And some of these have already been shared in the chat, so you can go more into depth with those. And then the second question is, how can you build structures? Like, what are you thinking about trying for next year, or pushing or building out for next year to enable student voice and choice? And then finally, and this is in the chat, what issues come up for you? Like, what are the challenges when you're trying to bring in more student voice and choice? So we'll go ahead and send you into those rooms. I think we'll do around 7 minutes. And then we'll bring you back. So when the thing pops up and says, do you want to leave? If you click it, it's going to zoom you back into here. So if someone's still talking and you want to hear what they say, you can just wait till the 60 seconds click down. Does anybody have any questions before we go into breakout rooms? I know this is a long prompt, so whatever you end up talking about, I think it's going to be a great conversation.
I just hope I can get in the room because I have problems with technology.
Okay, Miss Gladys. Well, if you have issues, we can sit and talk together. So you can stay right here if that becomes an issue. Okay. Okay, Anna, I think you can go ahead and send us into the rooms. And if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and say so. Welcome back, y'all. I always hate pulling people out of breakout rooms because I know I'm interrupting like the best part. I feel like you always get to the best part right at the end. Why don't we stay, Yana, in this in gallery view so we can see each other while we're sharing out for a few minutes, if that's cool. And then we can go back to the slide for the next one. I think everybody is back. Maybe a couple more people still coming in. So just wanted to give people a chance to share out something from their group that they thought others would benefit from, something else that they're thinking about, struggling with, something that's working really well to promote student voice and choice. Oh, welcome back, people who are still coming in. We're just gonna have a couple minutes here to share out from our groups, things that you wanna make sure the group can hear, ideas for increasing student voice and choice in our classrooms. And I'll just share, if you don't mind, Miss Pamela. Miss Pamela is a paraprofessional who works with kinder, and she's going to do first and second next year. And she just shared wanting to make more room for student writing as an amazing place for student voice and choice that I know from general ed sometimes is shunted. You know, we'll do it tomorrow, we'll do it next week. And such a powerful and simple way for students to have voice and choice. So just opening up the floor, you can share in the chat or come off mute, anything that your group was talking about promoting voice and choice.
We were actually, oh, did I hear somebody else talking?
Go ahead, Gladys.
Oh, okay. We were actually talking about how we listen to kids and we were saying that, you know, if you would just hear the child out, trust me, they will say some things that's really cool, really amazing. And then like one of the young ladies was saying, like, maybe at that time you don't have time to engage in that conversation. You tell them, well, maybe when we having lunch or when we go on the playground, we'll talk about this. And then they were saying, well, sometimes you might forget. Trust me, they will not let you forget. They will come back to you and say, remember you said, yeah. So it's important that we do listen to them.
I love that, Miss Glass. That brings it back. I don't remember who shared at the beginning, but when people remember what you were talking about and follow up with you, that's something we like as adults. And of course, that's something important for kids. Anisha, did you want to go ahead?
Sure. I was actually going to say something similar to what Gladys said. One of the things that we talked about in my group about that can be a challenge sometimes is wanting to acknowledge everything they want to share with you, but doing it at the proper time. Sometimes, sometimes we don't have, we need to get something done. And so we were talking about exactly what Gladys said, like, having lunch with them sometimes or talking with them on the playground so that they know that there's going to be opportunity if it's not at that moment that they want to share something with you.
I love that. That's so practical. A couple of things from the chat was having voice when choosing text for independent reading and circle time and giving students the chance to say something or to pass. And also like passing, like not talking is also a choice. That's their choice. Like they don't have to talk to us. That is up to them. Other things that y'all talked about, I think we have time for maybe a couple more people to share. Something that someone said. Sorry, go ahead.
I liked how the young lady, I believe, I don't know if it was Gladys that was in the room with me. Oh no, she was, I'm sorry, I don't remember the female's name that was in the classroom with me, but we shared on the fact that movement in placement during instruction and receiving curriculum, some students can work well under the table. Some students can work well under the seat. Some students can work well in a corner. I mean, in the corner in our day, that was unheard of. You was chastised for being in the corner. But some children achieve in the corner. And so to have them have their personal space was a great challenge for me to learn in the structure of teaching children. I always try to bring them in. I mean, group settings in front of the carpet, you know, in front of the Promethean board is nice. But when they need to expand their border a little bit in the classroom was something that I really learned about movement and learning and achieving tasks with children.
Thank you so much for sharing that out. And I saw someone put in the comments, flexible seating as like that's like one way of doing that. But it can be simple. It can be like, you can go sit over there, and also giving them choice that works for them.
Yeah, that works.
Where they sit. Yeah. Anyone else have like one more burning thing they wanted to share before we start to wrap up here? Okay, well, thank y'all so much for getting into breakout rooms and coming off mute and sharing your ideas. It's been so wonderful to hear your ideas, and I know for your peers to get a chance to hear those too. So let's go to the next slide. Please, Yana, thank you. Okay, so this is just, as we're wrapping up, this is just another encouragement to go ahead and join Cox Campus, and we're going to drop the link one more time in the chat to go ahead and sign up if you want to continue having these kind of conversations, if you want to find more like-minded educators and more resources for rigorous reading instruction that is rooted in building the deep reading brain and building a healthy classroom ecosystem. Cox Campus would be a great place for you to go. And on our next slide, we've actually created a discussion post, and we'll do this for each of the summer sessions that we're doing. And this is a place where you can go right now to continue the conversation. So after we get off of here, you can go to Cox Campus, the link is in the chat, and check out the discussion board. And you can say, hey, I'm really still thinking about, I want to do flexible seating, but I have 3 kids who really can't handle it. What do I do? So this is a place for you to engage with your peers, to share some of these great resources. So many of you are expert practitioners, and we would really benefit from seeing you on Cox Campus. With that being said, knowing that we'll have space for more questions and conversation there, I was going to say, Dawn, is there anyone who has any questions either for me or for the group at this time? We could do a couple of questions if there's things that people wanted to ask now. Dawn, you said, what's the book you referenced about reading? Are you talking about the Marianne Wolf book that I talked about on the deep reading brain?
Yes.
Okay, that book is called Reader Come Home. And I'll drop that in the chat. But any of her books are amazing. Any other questions, things that y'all want to
Yes, yes.
Ahead,
what was your information? Can I get your information? Your name is Miss Sarah Quinn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm Sarah Quinn. I'll go ahead and drop my email in the chat if y'all want to reach out to me for anything. I'm here in Atlanta, and that's my personal email. If you want to hit me up, you're welcome to. Any other questions for me or for the group?
You mentioned maybe getting, is it college credit or continuing ed credit? How is that going to work, or is that going to be announced generally?
So my understanding is that our courses have just gotten IACET accreditation, and IACET is a professional learning accreditation. So I can't, because y'all are from different states, different places, I can't speak to everyone's situation. But when you take, so if you go and you take the ecosystems course, there's now an assessment that you have to pass at the end of it. And if you pass that assessment, you will get a certificate that says you completed this many hours of credit, and you can bring that in depending on how it works for your certification, but it should be a continuing ed credit. Again, I can't speak to every state because, you know, everybody's doing their own thing, but hopefully in many states and many situations that would be contribute to your continuing ed credits.
Thanks.
And if you have any questions, you can always go to Cox Campus and write in the chat or post on the discussion board, and we've got people who hopefully can help you out with that.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions before we close out?
Yeah, it's truly been an honor and a pleasure to sit in on this meeting. It was awesome.
It's been so wonderful to talk. I was like, I hope people talk because
Yeah.
I was like, I hope I don't have to just talk by myself the whole time. Thank y'all so much for being willing to come off mute and jump in. I'm tired of Zoom. I know y'all are tired of Zoom. So I'm really grateful to y'all. Let's go to the next slide, Yana, just to make sure we dot our I's. So the rest of the summer series is with my brilliant colleagues. One of them, Justin Browning, is on this call right now, so he'll be hosting another one. But everybody's great. So the next one is on read alouds, and that's going to be how do you use read alouds as an instructional tool that develops vocabulary, comprehension, and that's going to be on July 22nd. The next is on small group instruction. How do you make that small group instruction really count? We at Cox Campus advocate shifting away from guided reading and shifting to a small group instruction model that is more effective. So if you're here for the controversy and the tea, please come out on July 29th. And then in August, again, we'll do those 2 sessions about assessment. And, you know, assessment can be dry, but we're going to talk about why it really matters. And we have tools to give y'all that you can print out and use to figure out what your kids actually know and what they actually need. So really practical assessments that are really going to make a difference in your instruction. So we would love to see y'all in August. Oop, I think that's a typo, Yana. August 5th. And then the next one, I think is going to be August 11th, 12th. It's going to be the next week. They're not both on the same day. Yes. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And finally, there is, if you live in one, so we have a lot of folks in Georgia, but we're working on expanding our work to other states. So if you're interested in bringing free in-person professional learning to your school or your district or your center, the Cox Foundation has provided funding to support free in-person or virtual learning to any organization, institution, or agency in Arizona, Colorado, Maryland, or North Carolina that works with adults that interact with kids, birth through 5. So you can email Jen Connor at jconnor@Foundations Inc. to schedule your free professional learning. So, and Yana dropped that in the chat. So just jot that down. If you do live in one of those states, that would be an amazing opportunity. Yes, so let's do our last slide.